That's my quarterback. What's trending, presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event. Jarom just mentioned it. Let's get to the specifics of what Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, said specifically about BYU quarterback Kedon Slovis over the weekend. Nagy, complimentary to say the least, saying that, quote, Slovis's NFL talent tape is obvious despite his stats declining the past few seasons. Nagy complimented Slovis's toughness and accuracy before saying that getting Slovis to replace Jaron Hall, again, specific quote here, hasn't been talked about nearly enough when it comes to best transfer portal acquisitions in college football this offseason, end quote. Wow. Again, with the stats sliding, Nagy is in on Keaton Slovis. Jarom, are you buying that Keaton Slovis is straight up one of the best transfer portal acquisitions in all of college football this offseason?
I've said he's as good of a quarterback as BYU possibly could have hoped for. We certainly hope that he's one of the best transfer portal acquisitions in college football this offseason. The jury is still out on that part, but I am super stoked that Keaton Slovis is at BYU. To bring a guy in that has the experience that he has, that has shown us what he's capable of. He's a proven product at least a couple years ago. We believe, based on comments by Aaron Roderick and John Beck, who have both coached him privately and publicly, right, is that he is healthy and that he is able to do everything and he is ready for this moment. He has something to prove. He wants to be in the NFL. After his freshman season, there were a lot of people saying he was first-round potential. Led the country in completion percentage, over 70% his first year, 30 touchdowns, 9 picks. He had a really good freshman year. Struggled a bit that sophomore year. It was COVID, after that, and then struggled in the year after that. And then at Pitt, didn't have a good O-line. All of a sudden, who was it? Jordan Addison left to go to USC, the reverse there. Offensive coordinator left as well, which was tough. Now he's in a better situation. So Jim Nagy, who is Jim Nagy? I think this is important as well. You mentioned Senior Bowl director. The dude isn't just a Senior Bowl director, although that would be enough. 18 years as an NFL scout. He has been watching film and guys and says some really flowery things about Keaton. I think that makes sense. The expectations are high here, too. We expect the BYU quarterback to perform. And what have John Beck and Aaron Roderick done with the last two quarterbacks at BYU? Put them in the NFL.
Sure.
Like, this is a nice run here. There was a run of essentially 6 straight starters for BYU. Gary to Gifford to Mark to Jim to essentially Steve to Robbie. And that was the greatest run in college football history of consecutive quarterbacks and college football numbers and Heisman top 10s and all this stuff.
Jarom, 3 years later, Ty Detmer's on campus.
And then
after Robbie Bosco.
So, and BYU has had some really good quarterbacks since then as well. But right now, given what Aaron Roderick has done, John Beck has done, not just with the BYU guys, by the way, put the top 2 picks in the draft this year. He is the best private quarterback coach in the world right now. Why wouldn't Keaton Slovis have a really, really good year to the point where he could be a day 3 at least draft pick? I believe Nagy, I believe Aaron, I believe John, and I'm excited about it. Does that mean he's going to be one of like the top 4 dudes in the Big 12? I don't know per se, but certainly Keaton is going to be a massive piece of BYU's success this year. I dare say the biggest piece.
Yeah, I'm looking at the other quarterbacks that got in the transfer portal this offseason and where Kedon Slovis would rank among those at the top tier. He's up there, Jarom. I mean, I'm looking at a guy like Sam Hartman, who goes to Notre Dame from Wake Forest. He's a proven commodity. I feel like he maybe is number 1 or number 2 in that conversation. Like, if I were ranking them, Kedon Slovis, to me, based on the history that you just brought up and the fact that Jim Nagy and other NFL guys and John Beck are saying, like, dude, this guy he's a dude. He could be really good for BYU. He's probably one of the top 10 best transfer portal quarterbacks this offseason, and there have been a ton. I mean, there are literally more than 100 quarterbacks in the transfer portal.
I'll take top 10. Yeah.
He's one of the 10 best in the transfer portal, so it makes sense. He had a Senior Bowl invite before he declared that he was coming back for one more year.
On terrible numbers.
After his worst season at Pittsburgh, because Jim Nagy and his committee or his selection committee, if you will, of the personnel in the Senior Bowl, believe that Keaton Slovis is an NFL talent. That straight up, they're like, no, you're an NFL quarterback.
Yes, and it's not based on numbers. It's not based on what he did last year. It's based on
potential,
who he is,
yes,
how he throws the ball, how he assesses the field, the kind of O-lines he had the last couple of years. Obviously, the last few years have not been good numerically. But we think that Slovis fits into a system. What did BYU do with the quarterbacks in the 70s and 80s into the 90s? The system was amazing, and these guys came in and played really well in that system and had their own strengths and abilities. Like Zach Wilson was different from Jaron Hall, but what they both did was take care of the football. Yeah. Like Keaton Slovis hopefully takes care of the football, but if not, he may penetrate defenses in a different way that Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall perhaps did not, maybe across the middle of the field. And perhaps that's Isaac Rex and Jackson Bowers taking advantage of those. We'll see. But I don't think BYU could have got a better quarterback in the offseason. Out of high school, in the portal, or on the existing team. I think Keaton Slovis is as good of a dude that BYU could have possibly brought in, which is awesome.
I am buying this. I mean, the question is, are you buying this?
Me too, and blue goggles are firmly on or off, whatever.
I am buying it. I went through the list of every Division I quarterback that had transferred, and I found maybe 6 guys above Keaton Slovis. I said top 10, so I probably put him at number 7 in the list of best. Shedeur Sanders, Drew Pine ends up transferring away from Notre Dame
to Arizona State. By the way, Drew Pine was number 2 in the sweepstakes to BYU.
But
it was going to be Slovis or Pine.
Would you take Slovis or Pine?
I would take Slovis.
Exactly.
I would have been fine with Pine. Also, does BYU just recruit guys that they played against at some point? Is that how that works?
Maybe. Maybe so.
Spencer Sanders to Ole Miss was an interesting one.
Yeah.
He is out of the Big 12 and in now competing with Jackson Dart for the starting job.
Yeah, he's got some nice numbers.
Guy.
He didn't have
that was in the mix 2 years ago.
He didn't have a great season last year. Yeah. But Cade McNamara leaves Michigan. These are big names, but I'd put Keaton Slovis right there.
Yeah.
He's there. So I had him number 7 overall on my list. They feel like he's an NFL quarterback. Does Jim Nagy and his team? Yes, this is worth the hype. This is before, again, after his worst season as a collegiate quarterback, they still feel like he's an NFL guy. We believe he's healthy. We believe he's had the proper surgeries. We believe he's getting the right training from John Beck.
And he has a system that will accentuate what he does well.
Aaron Roderick delivers the system that we believe Keaton Slovis will be able to excel in. Yeah, I'm buying this.
I think Aaron does a good job, too, of not just saying, this is how it is. He will look at Keaton as well and go, okay, what do you do well? We're going to cater that to you. Like, the offense evolved a little bit from Zach Wilson to Jaron Hall. There were some nuances there that adjusted, and BYU was taking advantage of what those skill sets were. Sometimes you got Jaron in the run game a little bit. At times, no Jaron in the run game. Just kind of depended on
Yeah, no, I had somebody ask me the other day, why do you like this kid so much? I looked at his numbers when he was at Pittsburgh, and I'm like, you really don't have any idea what was going on at Pittsburgh. He got there, and it became a situation that was nothing close to what he thought he was going to do.
Context matters. Business, that one area in your mission that never baptizes. Like, yes, there are times where it doesn't work independent of how good you are.
Yeah, the system quickly became a terrible scenario for Keaton Slovis, and he lost his top receiver.
Yeah. When the OC and the top receiver, can you imagine? Aaron Roderick leaves and then, Epps transferred. That'd be the situation he would walk in.
See, Aaron Roderick, Cody Epps is gone. Oh, and your shoulder's injured too.
Good luck.
Have a great career.
Yeah, good luck to you. He's back for a 5th year for a reason. Okay, here we go. There's a 10-year-old kid in topic 2 named Baby Gronk. He's taking visits to colleges, working out 5 to 6 days a week, eating clean, doing all this stuff.
This is crazy.
Jim Nagy also quote tweeted a New York Times article about Baby Gronk saying the NFL is a genetics league, simple as that. There's certainly outliers, but that's what it is. Then he told the story of Ziggy Ansah going from no football to 5th pick in 3 years. So what's the role of genetics versus development for NFL players in your opinion?
No question. There are a number of athletes in the NFL that are just set up for genetic success. Like, that absolutely is a huge part of the deal. But I am not saying that you can't develop into a great football player. Like, when you get the genetic lottery and you couple it with an incredible mind, now you have an all-time great. But yes, and I saw all the comments coming back at him like, oh, yeah, what about Russell Wilson? Did he win the genetic lottery? And I'm like, yeah,
He's got a great arm, and he's faster than you think.
There are smaller guys that are great in the NFL, and he said there are exceptions, but yes, like no matter how much, like what is this baby Gronk going to develop into? He's 10 years old. Do we know what he's going to become?
Hopefully more than Macaulay Culkin. Child star.
We won't know. Like, you're not a full-grown adult until, what, 24? Like, how is anybody going to know what this 10-year-old
around here, that's sophomore.
Eventually becomes.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take a while. And I'm sure the kid loves it, loves football. His parents are all on it. That's great. They found something that he's passionate about. But there's no way to know, like, yeah, baby Gronk is going to be an absolute NFL star. There are occasionally LeBron James and Bryce Harper's, like these guys that are tabbed as like the next great one early.
But there's dozens to hundreds of others that were not.
Yes, there's so many others that are like, oh, he's going to be the next superstar. And you never hear about those because they fade away. Like, that's what makes LeBron James and Tiger Woods and Bryce Harper, like those guys so great.
Brother Harper.
Right, sorry, Brother Harper. Yeah. Because they are a success story after being tabbed as the golden child early on. But those stories are few and far between.
Yeah.
Genetics matter. You need, the right upbringing. Now, in our day and age, you need the right money, the right camps, the right access, the right connections. This kid seems to have all of those, but what if he doesn't hit the genetic lottery? What if
he's 10? We're like,
he has a growth, like he doesn't have that major growth spurt, and he just like, okay, now he stops at 6 feet. It's like, okay, there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. Okay, yes, you have to check a certain genetic box. Like, you can't be too slow, you can't be too short, blah, blah, blah. For the NFL, and it depends what position we're talking about. Like, if you're a quarterback, hand size is way more important than you think. And if you're a tackle, reach is a huge deal. Like, you have to extend your arms out, and you may have to be a center or a guard. But as it pertains to BYU, I think BYU's done an excellent job of development, and we've talked about this, but let's repeat it. The fact that BYU can take, historically, Dennis Pitta and Chad Lewis as walk-ons, and then they're some of the best at their position in the NFL. Tyler Algier is a walk-on at BYU, 2,000-yard rusher in the NFL as a rookie. The fact that you take 3-star guys in Jaron Hall and Zach Wilson, Zach becomes a 5-star college player because he's a first-round pick. And Jaron, stays a 3-star guy as a day 3 pick in their NFL picks. BYU does a tremendous job of development because I think BYU is unique in its work ethic, its ability to cultivate people who are more than football players. And I think that adds to BYU being a little more disciplined and a team that obviously can take guys that have not played for 2 years in many instances and still get them into the NFL. Brady Christensen goes from 2 stars, return missionary, to starting left tackle for the Panthers. BYU should be credited for its development of guys who have checked the genetic box and get them into the league.
I mean, you listed all of those guys. All of those guys have a special skill set of some physical gift.
Yes,
right?
Liam Neeson-like.
They all have something special. I mean, we all, like in some degree, I'm listening to you say those guys, those names, like, oh, well, he's a freak athlete in that regard. Oh, he's a freak athlete in that regard.
And work ethic matters. Like, you can be unbelievably talented and win the genetic Olympics and kind of work and still be successful. But I think BYU develops guys that work super hard.
Spencer, what about Tom Brady? Yeah, he's 6'6" and has huge hands and a rocket arm. Yeah, he's a genetic freak.
Yeah, like he checked the genetic. Yes, he didn't run fast.
He did a bunch of other things.
But also his will to win was extremely high. Like, he worked hard enough to prepare well.
All right, Jim Nagy is setting the news for us today. The executive director of the Senior Bowl.
What's
trending? Our question of the day. He said that, speaking of quarterbacks, Keaton Slovis hasn't been talked about nearly enough when it comes to best transfer portal acquisitions in college football this offseason.
Acquisition, it's transactional.
Are you buying this? Buying, no pun intended. At Nate S_Dunn on Twitter says, 100% buying. People are forgetting Slovis threw for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns as a freshman at USC. He was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year.
He was freshman All-American.
He continues, every single season, Slovis has had sub 10 interceptions. So he has had
That's a good point.
Okay?
Yeah.
Roberts_MN on Twitter says, buying it, repackaging it, and selling it forward at a substantial markup. How so many experts can write off someone who's going to likely finish his career with somewhere north of 13,000 passing yards is mind-boggling.
By the way, he needs like less than 100 yards to get 10K. He'll be the third BYU player with career 10K ever. Granted, it didn't happen to BYU, but like, what? That's crazy, man.
Yeah, the
That's wild.
big time numbers. Hashtag BYUSN, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.